tonight you're giving us an overview of CPJ, Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited.
Yeah.
They recently released their performance for the 9 months ended March 31. What are the highlights, Leo?
All right. So I'm gonna share my screen for a moment because I'm gonna go back a bit and then go forward into the quarter. Um, yeah. So when you look on the numbers for, all right. So when you look on the numbers for the full year, what you're seeing. Hold on. This isn't showing. Hold on. All right. This isn't showing correctly. All right. All right. So all right. So when you look on the numbers, if you go back until to 2019, right, you'll see that the company had some challenges. Of course, going through COVID and all of that, so they had some losses, right? So you fast forward to 2023, June 2023, you're seeing that they've made a big turnaround. So they've gone up to a profit of about 6 million, 5.7 million US. Now, the thing about that is that 2023 number was actually impacted by a one-off expense of about 1.4 billion due to some tax implications, right? The company worked through that, and now that they've gone through that, if you fast forward now into the new financial year, so the 9M period, you're seeing where for that most recent 9M period, profit is actually up 32, about 33%, right? Now, if you move and you look into the most recent quarter, so that's now Q3 ended March 2024, you're seeing that profits actually up 300%. Now, that increase in profitability is due to Q3 the prior year was negatively impacted by that one-off thing. So what happened is that they had an audit that was done by TAJ, and they settled that, and that amounted to about 1.4, almost 1.5 million US dollars. So it's like a one-off loss, one-off expense that they worked through that. So now when you look into the new year, that's great, right? Now that the most recent quarter, if you compare it to the one before that, say going back now to March 2022, the profit in the most recent quarter is lower, like slightly lower. But if you look on it in a pre-tax context, and if you also look on it in terms of, like gross profit and all that, it's better. It's probably the best Q3 for the company history. And those metrics is just that the profit's slightly lower mainly because of higher effective tax rate, right? But overall, it's a great quarter, right? Now, I really want to show this here. Now, when you look on the company's performance in terms of the share performance, right, the stock price performance, what you're seeing is that in 2022, I really wish I could have put this up on the screen. That would be, it shows,
Do you want to try it again?
yeah, man, hold on. The thing is, the screen that I'm sharing, uh, sorry, sorry
Yeah.
about,
So while you look for that, I'm going to take some more comments. So let's see what the people are saying right now. Christopher says the big news for me this week is the fact that Select F has finally turned a profit after 4 years. Don't sleep on this stock. Strong Link wanted to know if we were talking about electronic books earlier. No, Strong Link, physical books is what that person was selling. Uh,
all right.
you got it up now?
Yeah, man, I'm good now.
All right, go ahead, share.
All right. All right. So when you look on 2020, so you see, all right, so what this chart is showing, so just in case anyone's not aware, it's showing the performance of CPJ's stock in every month and also for the entire year, right? So that's what this table is showing. So it's showing going back all the way to 2012, right? Now, in 2020, the stock was down 50%.
Put
Now,
your cursor. Can you put your
oh,
cursor to the part that you're referring
yeah,
to?
come on, let me zoom this.
2020, it was down 20%.
Yeah, so right here was down 50% in 2020.
50. Okay, for the year,
50% for the year, right? Most of that is because of the last year, which is in March 2020, of about 46%,
which is when the
right?
pandemic hit.
Yeah, I wrote yes. So they got a big beat up, and that year was not the best year for them. So they're down 50%. Now, the reason why I wanted to show this, this is one of the examples when it comes to stocks here in terms of showing that volatility, but also and a lesson, of course, that I always talk about, and investment committee also talks about a lot about diversification and managing your risk, because
Right.
this 50% decline, that would bring a lot of pain, especially if you too concentrated in the stock or have a heavy exposure. That being said, on the flip side, you also see why stocks as a part of a balanced portfolio can be a good idea, because the subsequent year you had a 405% increase. So it's right back to back, right? Now, of course, and you can see there was months with some big gains. This month in February, 28%, October, 67%, and then in December, 35%, right? And then, of course, the whole year you're looking at a 405% increase. Now, that is one of the examples as to why I'd say, for most persons, of course, each person would have to talk to their advisor and get a better idea what fits them, why you'd want stocks. So this is an example of what stocks can do for you. Both an example of why you want to be careful and why you want to still consider having stocks in your portfolio in back-to-back years, right? So that's what I just kind of wanted to highlight there as a prime example of the risk and reward of stock ownership. All right. So if this is another way of looking at the same thing here on this chart, so what we're looking at is at a time series, looking at the movement of CPJ over time. So you can see that this stock was highs was going back in early 2022. This was over $20 a share, and right now it's at around $8.52 a share as at closing. So that's a big side down, but you can see it's a big run up from the trough that we're seeing here in about
Hmm.
2020, right? So you see that big run up, and then of course you're seeing this move down on that.
Wow.
And then now we're moving.
What caused that big run up 2022?
Yeah, so this move is kind of in line with the recovery of the profit. So remember earlier I showed the oh, actually I didn't show it because it
Oh,
was showed up on the
they
screen.
were the number one performing stock that year, weren't they?
Yeah, they were one of the top performers. Actually, I didn't show this slide because of the technical difficulties, but we're back now. So
Okay.
if you zoom in here, so this it kind of lines up with the performance of the stock. Now, bear in mind their year end is June. So when you say FYE 2022 here, that's reflecting June 2022, right? So what you're seeing is that they're coming from a loss in 2021, in 2020, and of course in 2022 they returned to a big profit. So when you look on that chart now that I showed at the end here, um, when you look out here, then what you're seeing is it kind of lines up. So the company wasn't doing so hot; it was making losses because of COVID. There are some other little issues that work through that, and then you see the return in profitability, and you see the return, the movement in the stock price. Now, part of the reason why I like to see that is that if you're an investor, sometimes it doesn't work out because there's a lot of factors that can impact stock prices, right? But what this one shows is that if you're an investor and you're looking out long term and you say, all right, COVID hit them, because remember they have a lot of exposure to the hotel sector.
Hmm.
Um, COVID hit them. All right, is this gonna last? My expectation is it isn't, and you have your reasons why, right? You buying it at these levels when it was around $2 and so would have been a brilliant. Even now at 8, you're still well in the money. And I mean, if you even took some profits as it was going up here, you'd be very well in the money. But that insight would have would a lot of it would have just been driven by the fact that they're going through a low point now and they're likely to recover. And then of course it paid off and you see the performance in the stock price. So this isn't one of those stock price movements that some stock price moves are very difficult to predict. 'Cause there's a lot of speculation and those are very difficult and it's almost akin to gambling, right? But with this one, a lot of the movement is fundamental based in terms of the reason why you're seeing this movement in the stock is due to them coming from a very low drop and then coming to a really high because in 2022 that was a record profit for them. So
Hmm.
they're coming from some of the lowest points in their history to some record numbers in the span of like 2 3 financial years, and the stock price kind of followed suit, right?
And
So
I
it's not
remember when they achieved those numbers, we had them on the show and they were telling us about, all that they were doing. They had the new
yeah
location in Drax Hall, they're in Montego Bay now. Tourism has recovered
covered.
tremendously and is
Yeah.
still on a growth trajectory, and they
Mhm.
supply a lot of the hotels. So a lot of opportunity for CPJ.
Yeah, so they did very well there. And then you look now more, just zoom in a bit now, looking at year to date performance. So the stock is down 2.5%, and the main market is down about 2%. No surprise there. We know the story. Interest rates high as it is right now in this climate. Stocks are gonna take a beating. As in like they've been for a while now, and of course, because of the high interest rate environment, this asset class in general will struggle. And of course, CPG at this point is no exception. So early in the year they were doing well. So if you look early in the year around this point, they were doing fairly well, up over 20% in the year, cooled off. Earnings came out. That's the most recent earnings came out here. Stock reacted positively, but basically gave up most of those gains. Again, in line with the overall market, so it kind of rolled over a bit there. And then now when you look on the activity in the stock, that has completely plummeted. So there's not a lot of interest because when you look again, 2022, 2021, especially in 2022 when the stock was performing, you can see that the volume is there. As the stock started to kind of meander, you know, investors kind of lose interest, but the volume trails off. So there's some level of correlation between the stock price movement in terms of higher and in terms of interest. So when you get that interest in the stock and you have a lot of person trading it, talking about it, that's when you get that volume. So it's like 3.5 million on an average day would trade in terms of the amount of money that would trade on the stock. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's still relatively illiquid if you compare it to the more liquid names like your NCBs, your GKs. But for CPJ though, that was a good year. Recently, not so good on the volume side. Now, if you just look at the PE ratio of the stock, right now we're seeing a PE around 8 times. If you look going back to 2022, or the beginning of 2022, this is relatively low in terms of the price to earnings ratio, which gives an indication that basically investor sentiment or investors not really paying much attention to it because on a price to earnings ratio, price to earnings using that to measure, as a measure of value here, we're seeing that it's trading at some of the lowest points that it's traded in a while, indicating that investors right now not that interested, but it indicates that there might be a valuable opportunity here that could be looked at. And of course, the PB ratio is showing a similar thing where it's trading relatively lower than its 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year averages. So again, an indication that there might be some value to have here for investors. Yeah, so that's basically it for the presentation. So overall, what we're seeing recovery in the stock price, recovery in the profitability of the company. We're seeing where the stock price isn't really reflecting all of that. And of course, we know the overall dynamic in the market, which is something that would weigh down on CPG, just like most stocks in the market. You have a couple of stocks, breaking the trend, and outperforming significantly, but right now CPJ isn't one of those. But as I always say, and of course the history bears it out, any given year might not be that hot, but if you stay to it, you look at the company in the long run, in the long term, you know, and the company's performing, eventually the stock price will get up, will catch up once, the earnings are there, the cash flow is there. Yeah. So that's basically it.
So is this a stock that you're bullish on?
So as it is right now, based on what they've been doing, you're looking at the gross profit margin expansion and all of that. It is something that is looking good. Valuation wise, that's not bad either. That being said, as you can see, both with the liquidity, both with the liquidity in the stock one, and also with the volatility that you can see in the stock price, it is not for everyone. So that's why I keep stressing that you have to contact your financial advisor, because
Right.
if I'm for argument's sake, close to retirement, and I want a company that's constantly paying dividends. I think they haven't paid in a little while. Constantly paying dividends. I want a company that the stock price relatively stable and all of that. This might not be the name for you. So that's the reason why I keep saying that. But if you look on it overall, though, so I'm talking about the cash flows that are generating, I'm talking about improvements that seen in the balance sheet, debt to equity ratio that's going lower. All of those metrics are pointing to something good here. Gross profit margins up, all of that pointing to something good here. And of course, all the plans that they have in terms of expansions and all that they're doing, that's where the tourism industry is also helping them too. So there's a lot that's going on right for them, but it's not necessary for everyone.
All
Skip.
right. I have a few
Mm,
comments on CPJ. Javon says CPJ may not be a dividend payer right now, but it has great potential. Certainly one to buy and hold, in his opinion.
yeah.
Roswell said CPJ for me is a good stock to buy. I remember where it was trading a few years back. Yeah, you
Yeah.
saw that chart,
Yeah.
Roswell. And Natoya says, based on where the price is, do you believe it will go higher? If yes, buy and build a sizable position. Aim to own over 50,000 units in any company you buy. Once you buy at a good price, you should see good gains. So we have a few perspectives there on your
Yeah. That's in the
presentation.
bullish on it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it every single time. And we'll look
Welcome.
out to see. Oh, somebody had a comment. Let me share this comment. Shell said the promotion came with new video setup to new chair, new mic, new headset.
Well, I had the chair before technically. Yeah, but no, 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 I did not.
Nothing misses this crowd, Leo.
Apparently. Yeah.
Nothing misses this crowd. All right. Thanks
All right.
again. Much appreciated. We'll
All
take
right.
our final break and we come back with more of your comments.